মন্ত্রে দীক্ষিত কর সন্তানে তব আজ। অগ্নি মন্ত্রে দীক্ষিত কর সন্তানে তব আজ। আশীর্বাদের বর্ম পরাও, ঘুচায় দৈন্য সাজ। অগ্নি মন্ত্রে দীক্ষিত কর সন্তানে তব আজ। তপ্ত কর মা হৃদয় রুধির, দূর করে দাও ভীতি অশ্রুনীর। তপ্ত কর মা হৃদয় রুধির, দূর করে দাও ভীতি অশ্রুনীর। দাঁড়াই আমরা মা তোরে ঘিরিয়া, দাঁড়াই আমরা মা তোরে ঘিরিয়া, বিশ্ব সভার মাঝ। অগ্নি মন্ত্রে দীক্ষিত কর সন্তানে তব আজ। মানুষ আমরা নাহি তো মাহি, তুই যার মা সে কি কভু দিন। তবে কেন মিছে পড়ে থাকা পিছে, কেন এ অলিকলাজ। এসো 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 মা আমার, দশ প্রহরণ ধারিণী। এসো মায় অট্ট হাস্য, ভুলো কদুলোক নাদিনী। এসো 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 মা আমার, দশ প্রহরণ ধারিণী। এসো মায় অট্ট হাস্য, ভুলো কদুলোক নাদিনী। মোরা করি বিদুরিত স্বার্থ দ্বন্দ্ব, করি বিদুরিত স্বার্থ দ্বন্দ্ব, সাধিয়া তোমার কাজ। অগ্নি মন্ত্রে দীক্ষিত কর সন্তানে তব আজ। আশীর্বাদে বর্ম পরাও, ঘুচায় দৈন্য সাজ। অগ্নি মন্ত্রে দীক্ষিত কর সন্তানে তব আজ।
My turn.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to say about it?
Yeah, we should give some rest to Swami. This is not.
No, I'm fine.
Are you okay? Okay.
So in that case, I can give you some.
Okay, one more.
This is the song when Vivekananda he sang for Ramakrishna when he was sick and he was in Shampukur. It was 27th October, Tuesday, 1885. It's written by Bacharan Chattopadhyay. Rag Multani, Al Tal Arachika. That time Vivekananda's father was expired.
Yes.
He was in big trouble to run the family, having so many brothers and sisters, no income. So she is just singing this song to Thakur. Jabe ki dino aman bifole চলিয়ে যাবে কি হে দিন আমার বিফলে চলিয়ে আছি নাথ দিবানিশি আশা পথ নিরখিয়ে যাবে কি হে দিন আমার বিফলে চলিয়ে তুমি ত্রিভুবননাথ আমি ভিখারি অনাথ তুমি ত্রিভুবননাথ আমি ভিখারি অনাথ কেমনে বলিব তোমায় এসো হে মম হৃদয়ে যাবে কি হে দিন আমার বিফলে চলিয়ে হৃদয় কুটির দ্বার খুলে রাখি অনিবার হৃদয় কুটির দ্বার খুলে রাখি অনিবার কৃপা করি একবার এসে কি জুড়াবে যাবে কি হে দিন আমার বিফলে চলিয়ে আছি নাথ দিবানিশি আশা পথ নিরখিয়ে dino aman bifole Juliet. Very sad song.
I didn't understand.
Huh?
I didn't understand.
Oh, tell her what the song meant. Can you just very briefly?
Yeah, it was Vivekananda. His father was expired, so he was the eldest son in the family. So all the responsibilities came on him. He has no income. He has brothers, sisters. So his guru, he said, sing a song. So he just sing this song that what shall he do to run the family? So all his effort will be going into waste. So I don't know what to do. So please come to me and help me.
But really it means come into my heart.
Come into my heart.
He's not talking about financial help.
No.
The song addressed to God, you are the Lord of the three worlds, I am a helpless beggar. Please enter into my heart and enlighten my heart.
Enlighten my heart, yes.
Okay, I think my turn now. Durga Puja is coming up, so I was suggested that I say something about Durga Puja and specifically Holy Mother. But I want to start with a little bit of background and a little philosophy. What do we mean by mother worship? It's not a very technical term. We have all of our schools of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, all of these different things. And they all have big Sanskrit commentaries and everything. People study them, very technical distinctions. In mother worship, we don't find it exactly belonging to these philosophical schools the way these others do. There's no one equivalent to Shankaracharya or Ramanuja or Madhva or anything to explain all of this. Basically, we go by a lot of these poets, Sri Ramakrishna himself, their particular understanding, their worldview. And we can say this is Shakta philosophy, and we use the term Shakta. Shakta from Shakti. Shakti means power. So generally they'll use this term for those who worship God as the Divine Mother. So the Shakta philosophy is really a kind of worldview. And it's very interesting. It has some subtle differences and distinctions between it and some of the other philosophical systems. But it's more a devotional school and a spiritual school, meant for spiritual practice and for realization, and not for hair-splitting philosophical discussions. We'll find that it's very similar to Advaita Vedanta, except with its view to the status of the universe, where the universe is generally dismissed as somehow some appearance of Maya by the extreme Advaitins that way. So we'll find that little distinction is there. And when we come to Sri Ramakrishna, he practiced all of the different systems. He liked all of the different schools. He didn't look upon them as conflicting. He saw them as different perspectives, different models, different paths that we can take towards realization. He didn't have the view of the philosophers. The philosophers tried to establish their own philosophical school by defeating in argument all of the others. We'll never find him doing that. If anything, he'll say, I don't like to call the world unreal. He won't say this idea that the world is unreal is a mistake. It's a wrong view. He'll say, I don't like it. It doesn't appeal to me. Or I like this. This view appeals to me. This was also Swamiji's teaching. There was a very nice incident that took place. It was a girls' school, maybe in Mount Holyoke, I don't remember, somewhere in New England. And it was a girls' boarding school, and he was talking to all of the young women, the students there. And one of them said, Swamiji, that's a funny idea. I don't like that idea. So he said, then it's not for you. Then later he said something, he said, oh, how wonderful. And he said, then it's for you. So this is kind of our viewpoint, that there's a big smorgasbord. We'll like some things we won't like. We take the things that we like and we fill our stomachs and get nourishment out of that. So for Ramakrishna, he liked all of them, but, and I don't like this idea, some people will try to say he was really a qualified non-dualist, or he was really this or really that. He liked all of them. He didn't have that same attitude. But I think he was most comfortable with this Shakta philosophy. And I was saying yesterday that even with these different bhavas, these different spiritual attitudes, he practiced all of them, but as soon as he was finished with one sadhana, he went right back to his mother. He was the child and she was the mother. So that seems to me to be the one that was most consistent with his spiritual mood and spiritual attitude. So I wanted to just try to explain a little bit what we mean by this Shakta philosophy. In all of the Vedantic systems, all of the Indian philosophy, we can say, we have three terms, three concepts. One is, what is the nature of God, or Brahman, or Ishvara, or however we understand it. What is the nature of Jiva, or the individual? What is the nature of the world? So for Advaita Vedanta, the nature of God is Brahman, is a Nirguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman means that this absolute reality has no qualities that we can attach to it. Everything we know has qualities. We can't picture a table not being a particular color and not being a particular shape. There's always this substance-attribute relationship, but we call the Brahman the absolute because we don't have that relationship. There's no guna that can attach itself to it in any real, essential way. So the difficulty is that this Brahman is nishkriya niriya, that it's actionless, it doesn't do anything. And it's the only reality, that's the only thing we can say is real. Brahman satyam. So they're in trouble. How do they explain this universe? It's a big problem. It's a big problem for Vedanta. It's almost an embarrassment that there's anything other than Brahman. Where did all this Maya come from? How did this... Yeah, so they don't know really how to explain it. So they have this concept of Maya. And this Maya is really some delusive power, something which makes us fail to see something as it really is. Now, again, we have a difficulty because we're not even created yet. So there has to be some type of even delusion or some type of veil of Maya that overcomes Brahman itself. So that Brahman can dream this universe, enter into this universe, and then forget. And think that he's each and every one of us, not knowing that we're all nothing but Brahman. They're very convoluted, very difficult philosophy to try to get a handle on. But it's very clean and very pure, because it maintains this perfect purity of the Brahman. Nothing particular, nothing personal. It's absolute. It maintains that, and nevertheless, in its own way, tries to explain this universe. Now, even for the non-dualist, this Maya ends up having a little bit of Shakti power to it, because even to project this universe, the way we project a dream, there has to be some type of power, some Shakti. So they talk about two types. One is this avarana, the other is vikshepa, Shakti. One hides the real nature of reality, and the other superimposes something on top of it. So they talk about the snake and the rope. If there's a rope lying on the ground and it's twilight and we're walking down the path and we see it and we think it's a snake, the first type of Shakti hides the real, the ropeness from us. And the second superimposes the idea of a snake. So this idea of Shakti comes in a little bit. They don't like it very much, but Maya gets explained in terms of Shakti and even in terms of nature, Prakriti. When it comes to the individual, Jiva, again, it's a very radical philosophy, that the Jiva is actually none other than Brahman itself. There's no distinction whatsoever. If somebody comes into the room and they have a mask on and they try to scare us, they're pretending that there's something else. Swami Brahmananda used to do that with the kids. He'd dress up like a bear and put on a mask or something and scare them. It's still him. It's still Swami Brahmananda. So the nature of the Jiva is the Brahman with upadhi superimposed on it, which make us feel that it's something individual and separate. So the ultimate goal will be for us, each and every one of us, to realize that our individuality is nothing essential to us. Our individuality, our personality, our ego, that these are like the stick floating on the surface of the ocean. And we're really the ocean. We are that ocean of consciousness, and this is the stick that's floating there. So we see the nature of Brahman, we see the nature of this universe as something constantly changing, something hazy, something not very real, nothing that we can reduce back to any physical matter, that it comes from Brahman itself somehow, without affecting Brahman. And the individual is nothing but Brahman. So we have the illustration of the spider. The spider web that it creates comes out of its own body, and then the spider goes and lives in the web itself. So if we think of a dream, if we have a dream, the dreamer enters into the dream as the actor in the dream. It's not that the actor in the dream is a manifestation of that or a projection of that, it is that. When we wake up we say, I dreamt that I did this, the same I, that way. Now the Shakta school essentially accepts this idea that we're one ultimately with the Brahman. But it doesn't like that idea. Because, as Ramakrishna said so many times, I like to keep a little semblance of ego so that there can be this relationship. So we can worship God that way. Now the dualists will say that this distinction is something real, even in the state of God realization, that will still be separate with God, will be in some heaven, something like that. The Shakta will say, well, ultimately there there may be oneness, but the reality is that I think of myself as an individual. So we find that in this Shakta philosophy, what's more important is spiritual attitude. That takes precedence over any type of philosophical conclusions regarding the nature of reality. So in a sense, the Shaktas are Advaitins because they accept this idea that yes, we're one with Brahman, but they're realists in the sense that they accept this universe as something real also, and I'll get to that in a minute. You remember we have two different illustrations. One is this idea of the stick on water and trying to keep some separation so we enjoy that relationship. But you remember one day Sri Ramakrishna said to Swamiji, Narendra at that time, suppose that there's a jar of syrup and you're a fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then if you want to drink that syrup, what will you do? So Narendra said, well, I'll go and I'll land right on the edge of it, and I'll stick my head over and I'll drink that way. Otherwise, if I go and I dive right in the middle, I'll drown. Then what did Sri Ramakrishna say? You know, my child, this is Amrita. This is the nectar of immortality. You'll attain immortality. Now, Swamiji had that nature, the jnani nature. So Sri Ramakrishna was trying to tell him, yes, we have this oneness idea. You can dive right in and experience that oneness directly. For others, he would say, keep this separation. You have this feeling of identification with the body, you have some attachments and everything, that's okay. But look upon yourself in a certain way, and this is, now we get back to these different bhavas that we talked about yesterday. For the Shakta, The main spiritual attitude is that of a small child, and we find that this is a spiritual attitude that seems to be adopted by men more than women. Just as this Vatsalya Bhava, we saw adopted more by women than men. It's more the motherly type of thing. This is a very specific relationship between the small child boy and the mother. Now, it doesn't mean that women can't do it. But if we're talking about paradigms, and all of the songs we have. See, most of the what we get of the Shakta tradition is from these songs. Bengali songs, Ram Prasad, Kamalakanta, some of the other great kind of songwriter, poet, saints that we have in the whole tradition. So they were all men. We have the Vaishnava tradition, there'll be more women, the saints, as Mirabai and others like that. So the attitude that the Shakti generally has is that of a small child, small boy, but as I say, it can be anyone, a small child, wholly dependent upon the mother. Now, there are a few special features of this relationship. A very small child, an infant, we can say, sees the mother as the whole universe. Can't separate its own body from the mother's body. This is one of the features of this Shakta philosophy, that Brahman has become this whole universe. The mother is manifested this whole universe. Now this gets us to another point. Why look upon God as mother rather than father? We've already seen this psychological idea that the mother is more loving, that we can go and cry to the mother and she'll pick us up, and all of that, we know that. But from a philosophical point of view, look at the difference in the role that the father plays and the role that the mother plays. Father doesn't even have to be present at the time of the birth of the child. In World War II, it was very, very common for men to quickly get married before they were sent overseas. Yeah, and there were many, many children who were born. The father will be somewhere in Europe or Japan, something like that. They don't even know the child's born. They become a father at a certain point of time. Because the birth of the child turns them into a father. But the mother, the child is actually the material of the mother. Right. I mean, it's a cell, it's an egg, it's something that belongs to the mother. The child and the mother have the same matter, we can say. So from a philosophical point of view, if we think of this universe as coming out of mother, then it's real. It has the same reality that the mother has. So this is why Ramakrishna said that. I see everything, mother has become everything. This was his spiritual attitude. So this is another distinctive feature. We have some very beautiful songs. What is that? Bhajo Kali, oh my mind worship Kali. When I go around town, I feel like I'm circumambulating Mother Kali. When I lie down, I'm making prostrations to Mother Kali. Yeah, so this was Ramakrishna's attitude. Everywhere he looked, he saw Mother Kali. So everything is a manifestation of the Divine Mother, and God dwells within each and every being. That way.
Kamala Kant sang that song, I think.
Ram Prasad.
Ram Prasad.
The Ram Prasad song.
Yeah, I do. It is in gospel. It is in the
Yes.
gospel.
And it's quoted very often. It's a very, very beautiful song. Yeah. So this Shakta philosophy has the psychological side to it and the philosophical side to it. So if this universe is a manifestation of Brahman, then it's real. Now this is the exact opposite of what Shankaracharya says. He says this Jagat Mithya, that this world is unreal. Now, how does Ramakrishna reconcile these two points of view? Because he does, in a very, very beautiful way. He says that in the beginning, we follow the path of negation to get to the roof, then the path of affirmation to come back down. Anulom and Bilom. He uses this. Anulom means it goes in the same direction as the hairs with the grain. Bilom, then it goes backwards again. So, in the beginning, we want to find out the real nature of the self. So we have to say, no, this is something different from this body, something different from the mind, something different from the senses. We want to know the ground of this universe. What is that unchanging reality? It can't be any of the five elements and all of these changeful things. So we say these things are non-Brahman. But this is only to get to the roof where we can have that experience of Brahman. And then he says, when we come down, we see that everything is a manifestation of Brahman. And this is what he calls the Vijnana state. So he says when we climb the steps of the roof, that we say, well, this particular step, we haven't reached the roof. I have to leave this step behind. We go to the next one. But when we get to the top, he says we find that the same materials that were used to make the steps, brick and lime and brick dust, all of that, are used to make the roof. Then we see that everything is a manifestation of Brahman. So this is that philosophical aspect to it. But the mother who gives birth to the child also remains unchanged in an essential manner. This is another example that to me is very helpful. I heard Swami Atmajnanananda tell this many times. This is, I think, his favorite example. That if you take a woman and she gives birth to a child. Now, as soon as the child is born, the mother is born. The birth of the child is the cause of the motherhood of the mother. Right? It's reversed a little bit. I mean, from a physiological sense, the mother is the cause of the birth of the child. But the second the child is born, then this woman is a mother. Right. Does she cease to be a woman?
No.
That's the essential aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if she's a school teacher, right, somebody sees her as a school teacher, and the child sees her as mother, husband sees her as wife. If we ask the woman to come to us, does the student, just the teacher come? The mother comes, the wife comes, everything, it's one package. The whole thing is there. So what this says is that Brahman is both Nirguna and Saguna. That this what we call God has this impermanent, unchanging aspect, which is always present, and this other aspect will only be present when this cause and effect is there. If the universe exists, then this Brahman is no longer simply Brahman. This Brahman becomes Ishvara. Now, what happens to Ishvara when there's no creation? Nothing happens to it. It never was anything other than Brahman. Right? So it remains what it was. If the child is no longer there, then mother, she remains just woman that way. So this goes to maybe one of the most important teachings of this Shakta philosophy, that we can't separate the power, this power to create this universe, the power of the mother to give birth to a child. That's essential to the mother, but it doesn't always have to be active. It's always there as a potential. So this is, we have so many examples, the burning power of fire. So according to the Shaktas, we can't conceive of one without the other. If we conceive of Brahman simply as Nirguna Brahman, then we can't explain this universe or anything else. At least we have to say that it has some aspect of Maya to it, which comes into play when the universe exists. So this idea that Shiva and Shakti are always together, that way, that we don't find one without the other. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, there's slight difference, this Shiva-Shakti idea. For him, we don't have, say, Shiva, which will be something like Brahman, and then Shakti here, and they both combine to form that one reality. What he calls Shakti is nothing but Shiva together with its power, because they're one. They're not two separate things. So this is also part of that Shakta philosophy. And this is why he said to Narendra, you know, when Swamiji was a young boy, he hated this Kali worship. He writes in one letter, how I hated that Mother Kali. Of course, later he said it's my own special fad. that I don't talk about it much, but this is the nearest thing to my heart. Anyhow, Sri Ramakrishna was trying to explain to him, this Mother Kali is not some goddess, who bloodthirsty goddess who does all of cuts people's heads off and all of that. He said, what you call Brahman, I call Kali. But the distinction is that this Brahman, we have to accept the fact that Brahman is both Nirguna and Saguna. That the Saguna aspect doesn't have to always be active. It can be potential, the power to create, the Chit-Shakti, that power to project the universe. What happens to Brahman when there's no universe? It remains what it is, that's all. It doesn't disappear. See, we have this subject-object relationship. Brahman is the real subject, consciousness. As long as there's an object, then it can be the experiencer and the experience. Then we have a duality there. If the object disappears, then the subject doesn't disappear, but it's no longer a subject, it's pure consciousness. It remains what it always was. So this is philosophically, this is Shakta position, but more important is this attitude of perfect reliance on God, this tremendous longing for God, like the child. When the child goes out to play, we've seen sometimes the children, or if they get lost, if they're with their mother in the mall or something and somehow they get separated, sometimes you'll see a child just screaming, just the worst type of anguish. Where is my mother? Mommy, 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 like that. So the child, those who take this spiritual attitude, see nothing but mother. If mother is not there, they see only darkness. So there's tremendous longing to reunite with mother. And this idea of oneness is there. This is what I was saying in the beginning. The child sees the mother's body and his own body almost as the same. Wants to be taken into the lap, to be embraced, to be swallowed up almost by the mother. So we don't need that dualistic relationship that we find in some other traditions. That can easily vanish. And then just lying in the lap of the mother. So this will be the goal of that type of tradition. This Shakta tradition. It's very beautiful. And the poetry that comes out of it is just exquisite. And how Sri Ramakrishna, how it was so perfectly suited to his personality. How natural it was for him to cry, and he went through 6 long years, he said, where he would just roll on the ground and sometimes calling out, mother, 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 reveal yourself to me, where are you? Just like a small child. So that was really the most important attitude for him. Okay, now I want to get a little bit to the Durga Puja and Holy Mother. We have this tendency in Vedanta to identify. Say, Sri Ramakrishna, he used to like to identify his disciples with a certain aspect of divinity, or even something very specific. Say, Swami Atmajnanananda, he said he was a companion of Krishna. Right? Swamiji was one of the 7 sages, and then sometimes he says Swamiji was Shiva himself. We have all of these types of things. How literally we take these things is up to us. This is a very individual type of thing. Say with the Holy Mother, there are so many instances where we find her feeling some identification with one aspect of the Divine Mother or another. And Sri Ramakrishna saying that she's really Lakshmi, she's really Saraswati, and all of that. We saw yesterday with Sita, how he wanted to have those bangles and everything because he saw her as Sita. So, how literally we want to take these things is up to each and every one of us. If we look at Holy Mother's experience in Rameshwara, this is a very, very important incident that took place in her life. She went on a long pilgrimage to South India. Lots of other devotees and monks of the order, Swami Ramakrishna and others, were there with her. And because Rameshwaram temple is under this Maharaja of Ramnath, who was very close with Swami Vivekananda, really his disciple, we could say. That he looked upon Holy Mother as his guru's guru. So it made special arrangements for her to go and worship right in front of the Shiva-lingam in the early morning when other people weren't allowed to. This Shiva-lingam is made of some type of sandstone, which is very crumbly, which is not so they keep it covered with some type of encasement, so that they can pour water and worship and do all of those things. Otherwise, it'll eventually get destroyed. The story behind all of this is that when Sri Rama came back after rescuing Sita, and he wanted to perform the worship of Shiva, and there was no Shiva lingam, and he sent Hanuman to get one from the Himalayas. And in the meantime, Sita went to the seashore and made it out of sand. So we have the sandstone one, and she made it out of sand, and that's what was used for the puja, for the worship at that time. So Holy Mother went and was there during that time of worship when that casement is taken off, and she must have been in some ecstatic state, something like that. And someone asked her, "Mother, what was it like?" She said, "Just as when I had left it there myself," something like that. And again, after she went back to Udbodhan, there's somebody else, Golapma, someone else also asked her, "Mother, what did you think when you saw it?" She said the same thing. Each time she caught herself and said, "Oh, I didn't know what I said, I didn't really mean that," and everything. Now, how do we take this? Do we really think that the Holy Mother, that the Sita, actually did all of this, and the Holy Mother remembered? It's a very difficult question, huh?
Why not?
Or, why not? We can say that. Of course, this took place in yugas ago, when there weren't even, of course, according to what we know of the science, there weren't even human beings around. We're talking about, hundreds of thousands of years earlier. Anyhow, my feeling is that, of course, anyone can take it in any way, but that Holy Mother felt such a oneness. She felt this absolute oneness with the Divine Mother in all forms, because of her tremendous purity of heart, because of that Shakti that she had, because of her realizations, because of Ramakrishna's touch, all of these things. That, for me, I can easily understand it that way. Now, is the other explanation okay? Sure. If people
Well,
like
why
that.
would she say that if she did not?
Because she felt she was Sita.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
She felt she was Sita.
Because Swami,
Yeah.
I think for my interpretation is that Ma was like a much higher soul, and she remembers everything beyond past and what is going to happen in the future. So she knows what she was in the previous lives as Sita or Radha or whatever.
It's fine. I have no objection to any of that. Yeah. To me, this the Ramayana, Mahabharata, these are legendary things. How much actually happened? Did these incidents really take place? There's a lot of poetry in these things, but I don't want to shake anybody's faith. People who believe in these things very sincerely, that's fine. No problem with that. Now, when Sri Ramakrishna looked upon the Holy Mother as the Divine Mother, I think you can say in that sense maybe, but I think in a deeper sense, that he recognized that she was a perfect soul, that she wasn't born out of any karma or anything. We talk about these Ishwara Koti. She's much more than an Ishwara Koti, because she's the other half of the coin with him.
Yes.
So just as we can't separate Brahman and Shakti, we can't separate Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. And he wanted her to understand that. And this was the significance of the Shorishi Puja. This took place probably within a couple of months of Holy Mother's first visit to Dakshina, the first long stay in Dakshineshwar. It was March when she came of 1872, so this was June 5th. And it was the night of is Kali Puja, Palaharani Kali Puja, where she's worshipped in a very benign form, as a Shodashi, as a 16-year-old girl. The Divine Mother is worshipped in so many different ways, as Kumari Puja, and anyhow, so this is one aspect how she's worshipped that way. And we all know the story that Sri Ramakrishna, everything was going on in the temple, Kali temple, but he kind of stayed back, and he had Hridoy bring different puja vessels and things in his room. Nobody knew exactly what was going to happen. He wanted 2 seats placed side by side, or kind of catty-corner to each other. And then he said, please bring Holy Mother there. So Holy Mother came, and somehow she understood. He had her sit on the seat where the goddess was to be worshipped, and then he worshipped her in some formal way with doing all of the offerings and waving incense and light and all of these things. And then both went into deep samadhi, and it went through the whole night like that. And at the end, he offered all the fruits of his spiritual practice at the feet, also with Japamala at the feet of Holy Mother. And we feel that he didn't transfer power to her. She's the source of all power. But he awakened that so that she had some understanding of her real nature, that divine, especially divine nature. So this, and then we'll see so many different times she would take different forms. Say this is Bhagala. This is one very fierce form of Mother Kali. Now, Sita, we can say, okay, this event took place on earth, but we have all of these Dashamahavidyas and everything, or they're all separate things, or the different aspects. It's very hard to say. But she was in a situation where this Harish, one devotee, he became mad. He was having some problems, and he was taking some medication that made him temporarily deranged, and he started chasing Holy Mother. And then she said, finally I had to take my Magala form, this very ferocious form. I threw him on the ground, and I sat on his chest with my knee on his chest, and pulled his tongue out with my hand. Can you imagine Holy Mother doing that? So anyhow, we don't have to say that, okay, she wasn't Magala like that, but she knew that there is a terrible aspect. There's another part of Shakta worship that Swamiji liked very much, the worship of the terrible. That we see this hurricane that's coming. This is Shakti. This is Shakti. And there's going to be tremendous devastation. Do we want to say that that's not part of this Shakti, the power that belongs to Brahman? We have to accept everything, the good and the bad.
They all leave, Florida Center, they leave.
Yeah.
They all left to other places.
Yeah.
Swamiji,
Yes.
regarding that baby and the mother,
Yes.
when baby is born, the woman become mother.
Yes. Oh, well, we can call her mother.
Yeah, that is the
Right,
philosophical
right.
way we
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah.
But when woman does not conceive, they adopt the child, and they also become mother. Because mother is the love, affection, and the attachment.
Don't get
without any
confused. We're
interest.
using an analogy.
But the surrogated mother is not.
Anyhow, don't. Yeah. You're missing the whole point of the analogy. Yeah.
If you are asking a question, I have one question.
Okay.
I don't like one thing
Okay.
when I am told or read that Sri Ramakrishna has to do this for Holy Mother to know that she's divine. I mean, why would she know herself that she's a divine?
He didn't know about himself either.
But nobody had to, I mean.
No. How about Swamiji? Thakur had to touch him also and awaken something within him. See, she had such natural modesty and everything that she would never think in those terms. This veil of Maya comes even to the divine incarnation. Sri Ramakrishna says, even Rama wept for Sita, who was God himself. So there's a veil of Maya comes. Brahma pore kande. He says when Brahman comes and gets trapped in the snare of the 5 elements, Brahman weeps like an ordinary human being. So Thakur said over and over again that even the divine incarnation comes with a human mind. That element is there. And even the divine incarnation has to do, why did he have to do such intense spiritual practice? Holy Mother didn't have to do it, but he did. This is part of that play, that divine play. We can't really give good answers for these types of questions. Now I want to finish just with one thing with the Durga Puja, because we find a very curious thing here. And I think this is typical of Bengal. I don't know if Durga Puja is celebrated in other places with the same idea. But here we have this Vatsalya Bhava, because we're looking upon Mother Durga as our daughter, not as our mother. It's a very curious thing.
Yeah.
She's the mother of the universe, but we're looking upon the mother of the universe as our very own daughter. She's been given in marriage to this madman, Shiva, who wanders naked in the Himalayas, in the cremation grounds, smoking hemp, doing all sorts of things. And they're thinking, oh, our poor daughter.
Yeah.
And once a year she gets to come home to visit, that's all. She has to live with the in-laws. Once a year she comes. So for these 4 days that she comes during Durga Puja, the great rejoicing and everything. Our daughter has come back home, and then we don't want to let her go back after that. Now there's a beautiful incident that took place in Jaidambati when Holy Mother's mother was there. What, do you know the song? One wandering beggar
The
came.
beggar came,
And these wandering beggars, either they'll repeat the name of God, or if they can sing, they'll sing some song. So this beggar sang one of these Agamani songs about the mother, how people made fun of you and laughed, that you were given in marriage to this madman. And now see how you're worshipped throughout the world. You're richer than King Kuvera, living in Benares, all of that. And Holy Mother's mother, she started to weep. She was so moved by this. She said, this is exactly the situation. Yeah, with little Sharu, that everybody said, why did you give her in marriage to this madman? And yeah. But now, see how the whole world is worshipping her. People are coming and laying themselves at her feet and everything. So, so this is Holy Mother, and for us, she's the living Durga. When Swamiji was actually the last Durga Puja of his life. He had come back from the West. Bellarmat had been established, and he had a great desire to celebrate Durga Puja in a very orthodox way, with doing all of the mantras, all of the offerings, everything, even Kumari Puja, everything. He even wanted this balidan, the offering of a goat and everything. The reason was that they weren't accepted at that time. They were thought to be too unorthodox. So the others, the priests and the Brahmins and the high class people, they all looked down upon them. So he thought if we do something in a very formal way and invite everyone, that it'll be very good for us. As soon as Holy Mother, because of this offering of the goat, they said, check with Holy Mother first. He said, no, my child. That there'll be many people who come from the West and other people in the future, So Swamiji immediately dropped it. If Holy Mother's word was the absolute final word for him. Even when he had a vision of Sri Ramakrishna telling him, you go to the West, he said, no, I have to get Holy Mother to say. He said the grace of Holy Mother was 1,000 times greater than the grace of Thakur. It was hard to imagine the tremendous devotion he had. So this was 2001, and they had this at Durga Puja, and he said, unless Holy Mother comes, it won't be complete. And it was done in the name of Holy Mother, and she came, and they worshipped Holy Mother as the living Durga, along with the real worship in the temple. They had an image for the first time. Before that, you can worship Durga in just a pitcher jar filled with water and mango leaf and other things like that. But this was the first time that they did it that way. So Holy Mother, I think, was attended 3 different Durga Pujas at Bellarmat. And one final story I'll tell. I don't remember which one it was, but a coin is offered at the end of the puja. One of the things that's offered to Divine Mother, Mother Durga, and it hadn't been done. Somebody forgot, And Swami Atmajnananda told his one brahmachari, take this coin and offer it to Mother. So he's about to go to this, the image of Mother Durga. Then he thought, did Swami Atmajnananda mean Durga and the Pandal, or did he mean Holy Mother? So he went back and he said, yes, the living Durga, Holy Mother. So he went and offered it to her. So whatever we think of the mythology or all these other things, we look upon her as Durga herself, as the Divine Mother. These are the Shiva and Shakti, inseparable. So we have that beautiful hymn, Yatagner Dahiga Shakti, Ramakrishna Stita Hiya, Sarvavidya Swarupam Tam, Sharadam Paramanyam. We worship a Holy Mother who is not different from Sri Ramakrishna, just as the fire and its power to burn are not different. So,
Swami,
I'll stop here. We have a few questions.
One question on this, your last point, that Swamiji worshipped living Durga, that means Holy Mother.
Yes.
Put it, just like in the pedestal.
No, it wasn't like they do this with the Kumari Puja, where they do formal worship that way. Although many people did. She had to sit for hours sometimes, and people would bow down and offer flowers. And somebody once sat down and started, doing pranayama and got a big scolding from Golama. You think that she's a wooden image, that you have to instill life in her, something like that. But no, at that time she attended it, and I think it was given a seat next to the image or something.
Swamiji.
I had a question on this issue which you have already mentioned. Only in Ramakrishna mission I find they are putting a lot of emphasis on the Kumari Puja. I have not seen that elsewhere.
Swamiji wanted that, yeah. And
Why? What is the meaning of Kumari Puja there?
the meaning is that God is most manifest in or at least this feminine aspect, in a young girl who has no conception of sex life or anything like that. That purity aspect is there. So Swamiji himself worshipped. He worshipped a little Muslim girl in Kashmir at one time. Another time he did it because we see in small children that innocence, that purity of heart that's there. So whenever the purity of heart is there, we see the greater manifestation of divinity.
Is there any qualification in selection of a particular girl?
That's a very good
They
question.
do, I think. The Kumari Puja is a lot common than you think.
It's more common, but in Bellarmine...
Lot of, they
Yeah.
do it in Punjab and in
okay.
India.
Yeah.
Very commonly than every year.
Punjab there's no living like this Puja.
But in Bellarmine, does anybody know?
Kanjika.
Well, that's not
Upada?
puja.
Yeah.
It's not puja.
That's Kumari Puja.
No, but we do not puja those girls. We give them the gifts. Puja is the divine.
Wash their feet
Yeah.
and
We can
Yes,
give them
right,
and
right.
clothes or
Swamiji, another aspect of Durga Puja other than regarding the mother as a
Right.
daughter coming home
Right,
from the
right.
in-laws. Apart from that, I think there is another aspect of Durga Puja is good versus evil, good
Yes,
versus
of course.
evil.
Yeah.
And that is like
Sitskali,
we-
the asuras and everything.
Yeah,
Mahasura.
Mahisha,
Right.
Mardini.
There are a lot of aspects to it, yes.
And also Dashera, when Ram, defeats Ravana and,
Yeah,
So
yeah. This Navaratri and everything is celebrated
yeah,
quite
this
differently
is-
in different parts of
This is
India.
another aspect of Durga Puja throughout India,
Yes.
is good versus evil, and good is always succeeds.
But Swamiji, Kali is
Yeah.
Mahisasur.
No.
Durga.
Durga.
Durga. Of course, the Kali comes out of Durga, and there's
These are all the same
Chandi and
forms
everything.
of
They're different forms.
forms of
different
Shakti.
aspects,
Yeah.
But does anybody know? My guess is that it's probably a Brahmin girl.
Beg pardon?
Brahman,
Who
Brahman,
they pick to be the Kumaris, and probably from devotee families. But I don't know how they do it.
But Swami,
Yeah.
at the same
And it
time,
has to be within a certain age. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know
they-
exactly what it
they-
is, but there'll be a certain age.
Swamiji, they invite all these, younger girls, they have not yet reached puberty.
Yes.
And then they will worship them.
And
Uh-huh.
usually 9
But in
Even
Bellarmine,
for the
there'll only be one.
Kumars.
There'll be one.
No, there will be lot. Sometime 10, 12.
I'm saying in Bellarmine. Yeah, but I don't know how they choose them.
Yeah, they will call them and they'll worship each one of them.
Okay.
but Swami, and at Dakshineshwar,
Uh-huh.
when this Hirde did the worship to the daughter of
Trailokyanath.
yeah.
Yes.
So that was considered a very bad omen. But
Yes.
then when you do the Kumari Puja, what happens to their families? Do they? They don't mind that?
That was a caste thing.
Oh.
Hridoy was a Brahmin, and their
Oh,
daughter
I see.
was, they were from a low caste, fisherman caste.
Okay.
So it was
That
considered
makes
very
sense.
inauspicious. When Swamiji did it, generally it would be a Brahmin girl did that
Okay,
worship. But he also did, like I said, with his
You said in
Muslim,
Kashmir,
with his
you're
Muslim
Muslim? Yeah,
girl.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Because-
girl should be from low caste.
No,
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 it's not from
no,
the Brahmin.
Can be.
I see.
But
I don't know for sure, it may not be. It may be that any of the
Usually
three
from
upper
the
castes or
Brahmin.
anything. Yeah, I don't know. You can ask when Swami
to
Devananda comes
me-
or something.